views and opinions expressed on Explorers Secrets of the Truth or that of their guests or contributors are those of the speakers and do not necessarily reflect the views or positions of any entities they represent. All information on Explorers Secrets of the Truth is provided in good faith. However, we make no representation or warranty of any kind, express or implied, regarding the accuracy, adequacy, validity, reliability, availability, or completeness of any information on this talk show or website.
From monsters and ghosts to otherworldly beings, join the Explorers as they venture into the darkest realms, seeking the truth to what goes bump in the night.
All right. Welcome back, folks, to another eerie episode of Explorers Secrets of the Truth. The podcast, we're going to dig into the strange, the spooky, and the downright terrifying. I am Les, one of your hosts for the evening.
And I am Chad, and tonight we're diving into haunted objects again. We're going to talk about cursed items, possessed paintings, and antiques that should have stayed buried.
Oh, yeah. Some of these things carry more than just dust from the attic. Some of them come with stories, and not the bedtime kind.
Unless you like your bedtime stories that involve objects following you around the house and whispering at you at 3 a.m.
Which, honestly, would be kind of cool. Terrifying, but cool.
You'd think that until you wake up and one of your chairs is in the middle of the room all by itself.
Yeah, fair point. Okay, so grab a flashlight, turn off the lights if you dare, and let's get into it.
But first, Les, why don't you tell everybody where they can find us and reach us?
Yes, we can't have a show without that. So you could see us on Facebook and YouTube live every other Tuesday. You could comment underneath the show, as Alicia has from YouTube. She says hello, so hello, Alicia. Obviously, we could see comments that roll through. You could find us on X or Twitter at Explorers Group, our website explorersgroup.com, and we are on all the major podcasting platforms. So while you're there, give us a 5-star review, follow us on Facebook, like and subscribe on YouTube, and just keep the comments coming because that helps boost us in the algorithms. Now, before we get into the deep cuts like the Dybbuk box and the Belroy chair of death, let's start with a couple of these heavy hitters, the celebrity ghosts of the haunted object world, if you will.
Yeah, you already know we're talking about Annabelle and Robert the Doll.
Yeah, well, let's start with Annabelle, like made famous by the Conjuring films, but the real one. Way less Hollywood, way more terrifying. She's actually a Raggedy Ann doll, which, I mean, really doesn't look scary. I mean, a Raggedy Ann doll, it looks like just a cheesy little rag doll, but it is currently locked in a glass case at Ed and Lorraine Warren's Occult Museum.
Yeah, and also has a big fat sign on it that says, "Do not touch." And they aren't kidding. The Warrens have claimed she was possessed by a demonic entity pretending to be the spirit of a little girl.
Yeah, the stories around here are pretty wild. Like, one guy reportedly mocked her and he banged on the glass, and supposedly he died in a motorcycle accident that same day.
You can believe it or not, but even skeptics don't joke around when they're near Annabelle.
Mm-hmm.
There is just a vibe, you know.
Okay, now let's flip over to Robert the Doll. This guy's like Annabelle's older, creepier cousin. He lives in Key West, Florida, and if you take a picture of him without asking permission, don't be surprised if bad luck follows.
Now, the origin story for him is he was given to a boy by the name of Robert Eugene Otto in the early 1900s. And let's just say things got weird really quick. the kid would actually blame the doll, Robert, for broken things and weird noises that were heard throughout the home.
Well, yeah, and witnesses said that they saw it move. They heard it giggle. They even caught its expression changing. And today, he too, like Annabelle, is locked in a glass case. But this guy has like hundreds of apology letters behind him from visitors who disrespect.
Yeah, I would say if you ever met a doll with its own fan mail and a warning label, maybe just nod and just kind of move along. Don't interact.
Right. So dolls that can ruin your life. That's the energy we're starting with here, people. And trust us, it only gets darker from here.
Ain't that right? So let's buckle up. Haunted objects are more than just creepy stories. They're a piece of history, a touch of folklore, a little fear, and sometimes even death.
Yeah, that's right. So first up, let's crack open the Dybbuk box, the haunted wine cabinet that no one asked for.
Yeah, so let's get on the Dybbuk box here. For those of you who don't know, the Dybbuk box is a small wooden box or small cabinet that supposedly holds an evil spirit, a Dybbuk, from Jewish folklore. The first known owner who shared his story was Kevin Manis, who had bought the small wooden wine cabinet from an estate sale back in 2001.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but didn't he give it to his mom as a gift?
Yeah, and she actually had a stroke on the same day that he gave it to her as a gift.
Well, that's not exactly a thank you kind of gift, if you ask me.
No, nope, not at all. And basically, after that, every owner afterwards has reported terrifying experiences, nightmares, shadow figures, and even poltergeist activity. One guy even claims he had saw a shadowy thing crawling around his house.
Well, and let's not forget Zach Baggins from Ghost Adventures. He supposedly bought it, and he claims that he felt a dark presence immediately.
Yeah, you know, you know, Zach will basically say and do anything for the right price. I mean, he does have it in the museum, his haunted museum. So I think he's, it's a sales feature.
Agreed. But here's the thing: like some skeptics think the Dybbuk Bach legend was made up, and I know you got some information on that later.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, even the original owner, or not the original owner, the original person that came forward, Kevin Manis, he had later admitted that he kind of exaggerated parts of the story to make it sound worse than what it was.
Right, but so does that mean it's haunted, or is this like the hype itself giving it power?
Well, see, and that's what kind of creeps me out about this kind of stuff is sometimes people's beliefs in curses is just as powerful as any curse itself. It makes them very irrational where they try to connect everything to the curse instead of just saying like, look, it was bad luck. I stepped off the curb and twisted my ankle. Well, it had to be the curse on this item I have. Well, no, you might have twisted your ankle a million times prior doing the same thing, but now all of a sudden you've heard of a curse. Right.
So is it like a kind of a placebo effect? You know what I mean? One of those like, well, it's in your subconscious. So is it really a curse, or is it just because you think it is?
Well, and that's the thing. Like, would you not have to know, like, if somebody cursed you or cursed an item and then you bought it, if you knew nothing about the curse, would the curse still even work?
True. That's
like,
true.
Is it, you know what I mean? Like, if you don't know, like, anything's wrong, would you, like, oh, I bought this picture frame and, if strange stuff started happening, is it that the picture frame is haunted or cursed, or is it just like, oh, weird stuff is happening? Like, the house is settling, I'm hearing weird noises, something fell off the wall. Well, when I nailed that picture frame up with the picture in it, I hit a beam inside the wall, which now has loosened up the nail that the other thing was holding on. So, could it have just been, incidental things that are attributed to what people think are curses.
Right, like a coincidence. You know what I mean? You get the thing and then you do something and then there's a reaction, but you're blaming it on or attributing that incident on the thing that you just brought home.
Yeah, I mean, I don't like to necessarily believe in coincidences.
Mhm.
They're to me it's like a cop out on a lot of things. Is that's just coincidental.
Yeah. Do you hear a low rumbling at all in your headphones?
No, not at all.
I have some sort of we're on a new platform, but technical issues. I am really hearing some sort of weird background noise that is driving me nuts. It sounds like a bunch of people crawling on a floor above you, just like I don't know. It's very, very distracting. So if I seem a little off, it's just this sound is like driving me nuts.
Well, it could be mental illness. I don't know.
It very well could be.
Of course, I don't sound very loud. I don't know.
I tried to pump your audio up here. I have it maxed, so hopefully that'll bring you in through a little bit louder. Anybody else listening, let us know how we sound coming through, if you could hear us or if you can't hear us. And let me know if you hear any. All right, so Alicia says no buzz on this end. It's like a muffle. I don't know, like it sounds like something's crawling around. It's weird, and my EQ is going nuts. So
Maybe
it's got to be something in my
maybe one of those items you bought is cursed.
It may be. I don't know. Who knows? I can't get it to stop. But anyways, back to the Dybbuk box. So here's the weird thing, right? These Dybbuk boxes, like to me, I always thought like a Dybbuk box was something that was like an antiquity, something. No squirrel sounds on this end. Okay, good. So I always thought it was like something old, like an antique item that was passed down through generations and blah blah blah. Well, now apparently you can actually buy these things off of eBay, and they range from about $15 to about $250 or more. And when you purchase them, supposedly they're created and sold by practicing witches.
Yeah, there's a video on videos on YouTube all about that. One of the ones I recall is from the channel Mindseed TV.
Yeah.
Dude buys a Dybbuk box from eBay and videos himself opening it, and then video documents all the weird stuff happening at his place after he opens the box.
Right. Yeah, I saw that one too, and it was really neat. I actually really enjoyed it. And speaking of them being made by practicing witches, like I'd mentioned before, his came with a letter of precaution stating not to open the box or tamper with it, as it may release the quote-unquote demon within the box. And obviously bad things happen to you, your family. So, there is that.
Yeah, well, here's the problem, right? A Dybbuk, the Jewish folklore entity, is not a demon. It is clearly stated in Jewish folklore, in the Talmud, and even in the Zohar, that Dybbuks are not demons. Dybbuks are human spirits that have lingered on with the ability to possess other people to do unfinished business. So this whole thought of the Dybbuk as a evil entity, Dybbuk doesn't have a good or evil connotation. It just has, in folklore, is a entity that was human, so therefore not a demon, that can possess another human and carry out unfinished business, right?
Right.
So if you go back to think about this, like the original Dybbuk box that this guy had bought, the alleged background story on it was in Poland right before the beginning of the German invasion of Poland. The night before, these two girls were messing around. Two Jewish ladies were messing around, and they had conjured a Dybbuk and then trapped it in the box. And the very next day, World War II, the invasion of Poland starts. And then one of the ladies, I believe, dies during World War II. The other one's alive. Years later, she hears about this box. She comes forward and says, "Oh, it's a Dybbuk box. We caught a Dybbuk." But this whole thing of, I mean, they've made movies about this subject now, like, oh, the Dybbuk box curse, and this isn't, there's not a million of these things.
Right.
Like, these are things that people are, it's like, hey, Les, you go drop this doll in a cemetery. I'll go on my morning walk and I'll videotape my walk for a week and show people, like, oh, this is me out in the mornings. And then I'll find this doll and then I'll put it on eBay and say it's a haunted doll that I found in a cemetery. And since I brought it home, all this weird stuff has happened.
Right.
Now, take it off my hands for $250.
Right.
Buy now. You know, so I mean, this the original Dybbuk box is a single item. This whole market of Dybbuk boxes, I think, has just become just that. It is a let me sell you something.
Well, it goes to the paratourism thing that you always coin. You know what I mean? Like, it's just another thing that people feel, oh, well, paranormal's a hot topic right now. I can make money off this if I say it's A, B, or C.
Oh, yeah. I think a lot of these people have basically gotten into the whole, like, I see so many people now claiming that they have haunted dolls and all that, and, you know, oh, come, you know, in fact, I just actually sent a couple of my buddies from down here the invite to go take a picture with Annabelle.
Oh.
We were going to go, one buddy and I, Brandon, in fact, and I were going to go like a year or so ago. And then we, you know, stuff popped. Oh, we were cursed. We couldn't go. Stuff popped up. So we didn't get to go. So now they're doing a second tour with Annabelle.
So, not up in that museum. They're taking it around?
No, it's going to be... no, and this is the thing that gets me. It's going to be in Gettysburg again.
For when we're planning on going, or at a different time?
At a different time.
Okay.
So, this doll is so bad, so evil, so haunted, so cursed, so whatever.
Let's take it on tour.
Exactly. Let's get on an airplane or in a car. When somebody made fun of it and they allegedly died in a motorcycle accident
right.
that day or whatever. So these people... And when they show you, like, if you've ever watched the video of them moving Annabelle to the case inside even in their museum, like, they're spritzing it with holy water. They're wearing, like heat gloves and stuff like that, like, up to, you know, forearm level gloves.
Yeah.
And they're, like, splashing it with holy water and, you know, all this stuff. But yet they feel comfortable enough to travel at least, 7-8 hours, or 2 hours by plane, then another 2 hours by car with Annabelle.
Right.
So I almost think there's two Annabelles. Like, I think there is the traveling exhibit Annabelle, and there's, like, hey, this thing is actually locked in this cabinet for a reason, but we now have one that we kind of use as a paratourism item.
Right.
Because you have to pay to take the picture.
Right.
Like, it's not like a freebie, like, oh, you come in this place and you can take a picture with her. No, you actually have to pay to take a picture with her.
Okay. Well, kind of like the Minnesota Iceman, remember? Originally, they you know, the original one was going around, then all of a sudden they had this gaff made, and then they were touring around with that. And was it Ivan Sanderson and Bernard Hoovelman? I believe they had... examined the original, and then they saw the other one that was out on tour, and they're like, "That is definitely not the same thing," you know. And with the Annabelle thing, I don't know. Like, the jury's still out for me with the credibility of Ed and Lorraine. Like, I know they're like the godparents of
bits
demonology.
and pieces.
Right, yeah.
It's
So, I
true.
mean,
a lot of it is. A lot of it was showmanship,
yeah.
and building up their legacy and their credibility. Has come down to a lot of let's get attention for what we're doing, and then if we did accidentally or on purpose do something to create a scenario, well, you can't really say yes or no.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, seeing Lorraine Warren when she was older and stuff like that, she seemed like a sweet little old lady.
Yeah.
Ed Warren, from everything I read, was a showman. He
looks like your typical used car salesman. Hey, Crazy Eddie's used car lot. You know what I mean? Come on down. Like anything to turn a buck.
Yeah. I mean, he was caught, calling long distance on one of the people, like one of the houses they were there to investigate. He was calling long distance to media outlets to draw attention to the case. Was that him trying to, enhance their reputation, enhance their career, or actually get the attention of the church? You could argue that back and forth.
Right.
I mean, if I could get my stepbrother, my sister, and my stepsister to actually agree to come on and talk about this, my stepmother has a haunted doll.
Oh, really?
We watched this thing. The four of us, my blood sister, and then my stepbrother are like 9 months apart in age or a year. Mm-hmm. Then my stepsister and I are like 4 to 5 years younger than them, and about 9 months to a year apart.
Mm-hmm.
So our parents would go out to eat, my dad and my stepmom, and they'd leave us at home, and when you walked in their house, it was like a half wall, and then it was like a seating area to take off your shoes, and then they had a big L-shaped couch. The stairwell was to like on this side of the couch,
mm-hmm.
and this doll sat right next to the stairs in a rocking chair. Well, there was the L sofa faced into the room, and the TV was on the opposite end of what this doll was.
Right.
And we would all be home, the four of us, sitting on that couch, like it was a big L-shaped couch, so there was 4 of us sitting on it. And all of a sudden, you would hear the rocking chair start tapping against the wall behind it, because it was rocking.
Oh, that's weird.
And it was this creepy-ass old doll. We used to hide it.
Mm-hmm.
We would take it up and hide it in the closets, because none of us wanted it like around us when we were home.
Right.
And we never saw it like get up and walk around or anything like that, but the rocking chair would, and we were all sitting in the room. It wasn't like, one of us ran up the stairs and might have bumped it.
Yeah.
Like there was a full wall with that stairwell. This thing would just randomly start rocking in its place. I think she still has it to this day. I don't know though. But yeah,
that's creepy. That is very creepy.
Yeah, we always would take it and like hide it up in the middle room, which was like a closet upstairs. And she would always bring it back down. We'd always like be like, "Why is that? Why can't we get rid of that?" And she's like, "Oh, I've had it for years. It's a so and so doll." And we're like, "Yeah, it's possessed. It is creepy as all hell, and it moves on its own." And it had the eyes that like opened and closed. And it would just like kind of its head would be looking at you as it was rocking in the seat. So it was creepy. None of us liked it.
No.
Let's move on.
Do I sound any different? I'm trying to adjust my levels to get rid of this noise that keeps coming through. Am I any lower or?
No, you sound about normal to me.
Okay, all right. I'm sorry. I keep going back to it, but I'm telling you, it's like
it's
just
mental illness.
It is.
Just embrace
mental
it
illness.
And move along.
Yeah. Hey, I do want to circle back one thing real quick about the Dybbuk, because you had said that it's not a demon, that it's actually supposed to be a human spirit, right?
Yeah, it's a human spirit. It's not a demon. It has no good or evil intent The name Dybbuk is not the Jewish word for demon. It's not the Hebrew word for demon.
Mm.
It is a spirit that is clearly spoken about in the rabbinical Talmud and the Zohar
Mm.
as a human spirit that has the ability to possess a deceased human spirit that has the ability to possess a living human.
Gee. Well, demon or not, that creeps me out. Like, I think that would be terrifying in itself. And it almost kind of has like a poltergeisty thing to it, like with moving stuff and making the noises and throwing shit around houses and stuff like that. So it's almost like the worst of all worlds. You know what I mean? It's kind of got demonic and what do you want to call it? Like demonic things. He's got some ghost things. It's got some poltergeist things. So it's like there's a lot of attributes that kind of mix it all together. All I know is I wouldn't want to mess around with it. I wouldn't want to open one of them. I don't want to take the chance. But anybody interested, just do a search on YouTube, and like Chad had mentioned, that Mindseat TV, that guy has a pretty good video on. I couldn't find the other one that I saw originally. I would have shared the link, but there's a lot of really good ones out there that, for nothing else, just entertaining creep factor YouTube video. I would recommend going and check them out. Where are we going next?
All right, Les, let's talk about a haunted object that doesn't just sit there and look creepy. This one actually has a body count that's associated with it.
You're talking about the Conjured Chest, aren't you?
Yup! Also known as the Chest of Death, this 19th century wood dresser is believed to be responsible for the death of at least 16 people.
16. That's just not like a bad luck streak. That's a full-blown haunted business.
So the story goes that in 1830s, a Kentucky man named Jeremiah Graham commissioned a chest of drawers for his soon-to-be-born son. But instead of paying a skilled craftsman, he enforced an enslaved man to make it.
Well, here's where it kind of gets dark. Like, the enslaved man, knowing he was being mistreated, supposedly cursed the chest as an act of revenge, which kind of makes sense. I'm surprised there weren't more haunted objects, made by enslaved people out of revenge.
Yeah, I definitely could understand, like, if curses are real, then why wouldn't these people
do more of that? I mean, because you have a lot of that voodoo religion
so very
and practice.
well.
That's right. I mean, you have a lot of that history in the South and stuff like that, especially New Orleans and stuff, where you have well, where does that originate? Is that African or is that Asian? Or both?
Well,
it all came from Africa, right? And then they moved. They when they were freed, they went to Haiti or something, wasn't it? Like how it went? They took their practices with them. No,
not at all. But
clearly, I don't know my history.
Yeah. No, the Haitians were also enslaved and had a revolt, and once their revolt was successful, they became their own government.
Oh, well, there you go.
And that's why you have two nations on the island of Haiti, and the Dominican Republic split an island. But
that's why you are a professor.
Yeah, you're not here for the history. You're just here for your good looks.
Yeah, right.
So getting back to this.
Yeah, I was going to say, what, knowing that this first was out of revenge, what happened?
Well, almost immediately, bad things started to happen. The first baby to use the chest actually dies before his first birthday.
God.
And from that point on, any family member who used the chest or even stored their clothes in it would suffer from illness, misfortune, or even worse.
Oh, Jesus. Well, the deaths were so frequent that the family started keeping track, okay? So some died from illness, others from freak accidents, and one guy was even murdered.
Yes, even at one point, the family tried to break the curse by having a preacher bless the chest and place holy metal inside one of the drawers.
Did it work?
Not really. Now, not really in the sense of, yes, the deaths actually slowed down, but they didn't stop completely.
Mm-hmm.
And eventually, the family just locked the chest away and just refused to use it, kept it, hidden in the attic, and would not touch it.
Well, let me guess. It's in a museum now, right? This is the retirement home of all these haunted relics.
Yep, it's in a museum. It's at the Kentucky History Museum in Frankfurt, locked up in a glass case with a sign telling people do not touch.
All right. If only people would listen, right? And I'd like to think that museums are supposed to be, quote unquote, safe, but they're really just a collection of haunted stuff. I mean, if you think about it, museums are loaded with antiquities. You don't know where they came from. You don't know who or what made it or what they, infused into it or enchanted it with, So it's just like they're daring people to look and touch.
Well, exactly. And if you think, like, honestly, even stuff that we have that isn't cursed, but has been stolen from cultures for, no offense, but the British stole billions of dollars worth of artifacts from all these countries that they were in. People nowadays would want those, like, countries want their stuff back. They want their mummies. They want their, historical artifacts back for their own museums.
Right.
What would stop somebody from cursing something nowadays, like something that's already in, say, the London Museum, but belongs to Egypt? Some Egyptian, religious group just curses this item that is there, and all of a sudden now you have a brand new curse. Like, you have a brand new issue with, something from a grave that may have had a curse on it originally, or there was some written form curse to it. And,
now it's just extra cursed.
Yeah, now it's doubly cursed. It's double your pleasure, double your fun.
With extra cursed haunted objects. Gum. Well, that's a really good point. I mean, a lot of those tombs were looted throughout history. So much stuff was stolen. And I mean, you figure, like you're, to your point, like, think about all the wars and everything. When different countries would conquer another one, they would just take all their shit, all their history, and either destroy it or adapt it to their own to get people to abide and follow. So yeah, I would agree. And a lot of, hypothetically, a lot of those, like, pagan or older religious groups or groups of people, a lot of them had sacrifices, and they would, sacrifice animals. They would sacrifice people, all these offerings to the gods. And you find these potential sacrificial knives or altars or this, because it wasn't the I want to say that they found an altar or a sacrificial altar table in one of the South American structures, pyramids, I guess you could call them, that had like little channels in it where it would almost like you would drain the blood out of it. Like you would, they would kill the person or make the offering and the blood would drain off the table and all that shit. I mean, they take all that stuff, they move all that stuff around. And like I said, all these, whether it be in Egypt, whether it be in South America, like all these temples or pyramids or whatever you want to call them, they've all been looted. All that stuff has been taken out of them, and it's Lord knows where now. And then you have people, well, like me. I mean, I love antiques. I collect all kinds of, odd shit, and I don't know what half the stuff that I might have, may have.
Well, yeah.
So.
That's why I've always said the coolest ghost show would be to go to antique stores with like millimeters and stuff like that, and just like talk to the people, be like, since, like, you own this store, have you ever had any strange experiences? Well, yeah, I knew people that owned a local antique store down here, and they're always like, yeah, we have this one section. Every so often, you'll just find something off this shelf over here on the ground, not broke. Like, glasses will fall off the shelf, but not break on the floor. But all of a sudden, you'll come in the morning, and the glass that's part of this set is now laying on the ground over here, but no chips, no breaks, nothing. Doesn't look like it's slid off. It was far enough in. That would be the ghost hunting show. Like, go to antique stores awesome. With the K2s and stuff like that, and just get their stories, and then ghost hunt haunted objects.
Well, wasn't there a show called The Haunted Collector or something like that? It did something similar. I don't think they went to antique shops, but he would get in touch with people that had antique pieces that were supposedly haunted.
Yeah, I kind of remember something like that. I don't remember.
Yeah, I never got into that one, but I do remember something like that.
Yeah, I don't remember who was that John Safras or whatever?
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah, he's Ed and Lorraine Warren's nephew or whatever.
Oh, there you go.
Or son-in-law. One of the two.
There you go, right there.
Yeah.
All right, what's the next one?
So, the next one we're going to talk about, it's one of the creepiest haunted objects in the world. The Anguished Man painting.
That one is potential for nightmare fuel.
So, this painting was found by a guy named Sean Robinson, who had inherited it from his grandmother. The painting shows a screaming, tortured-looking man, and apparently the original artist mixed his own blood into the painting.
Why?
I don't know. But if B horror movies have ever taught me anything,
B horror movies
is never mix bodily fluids with your artwork unless you're G.G. Allen.
Right, definitely. So Sean's grandma had this painting locked away for years, right? Claiming she heard whispers and crying from it at night.
Yes. And when Sean actually hung it up, the same things happened. People in his home felt a dark presence, saw shadow figures, and even got scratched in their sleep.
Well, here's the kicker, though. Sean actually recorded some of these activities, and I really wish we had a link to this, because it's some creepy shit.
Yeah, you can find clips online from his feeds of doors slamming, some muffled screams, and even the painting moving on its own.
Burn it.
He still has it.
Why?
Content.
Right. Okay. So if you thought The Anguishing Man was bad, wait till you hear about the Crying Boy painting.
Yeah, now, this is actually one that kind of gives me chills.
Oh. Which is surprising, because not much does. Yeah, this painting...
Well, you've met my first wife.
Yeah,
nothing can fucking scare me anymore.
Sadly, I kind of had a little bit to do with that, because I introduced you guys.
Yeah, it's all your
fault. Sorry. This interesting thing about the Crying Boy, though, is whereas the Anguishing Man was one painting, right? The Crying Boy is actually a series of prints made by artist Giovanni Bragolin. In the 1950s, they showed different children with tears streaming down their faces. It kind of seems harmless, right?
Not so much, because in 1980, a series of mysterious fires broke out in homes across the United Kingdom. Guess what?
What?
The only thing left unburned in these houses was the Crying Boy paintings.
Well, funny though, it wasn't just one fire, right? I mean, wasn't this like multiple incidences?
Yeah, firefighters report pulling these paintings out of charred ruins, yet the paintings were completely untouched.
Well, on topic, people think it's cursed, and if you own one, you're just inviting disaster.
Yeah. What's weird is no one knows why the painting itself is fireproof.
Okay.
Some say it may have something to do with the varnish, but others claim the curse comes from the tragic backstory of the boy in the painting.
Hmm.
One version says the child was an orphan who died in a fire himself.
Well, that would be horrifyingly ironic.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly. You look exactly right, gosh. Sorry.
No, you're fine. Well, here's the funny thing though. Like we were talking before, I swear. Now, most of these supposedly took place in the UK, right? Of the crying boy,
Yeah.
the fires. But
Yes.
I swear we were talking about this before yesterday when we were prepping for the show. Don't you remember, like, when we were growing up in the 80s? I swear I remember, like, everybody's house that I went to had either a picture of a little boy or a little girl crying, and I remember, like, they were wearing, like, jammies, holding the pillow, and they're just crying, kinda like those Precious Moment kind of figurines, you know what I mean, with the big kind of puppy eyes, big tear. It was either those or, it was a clown, like a clown with a tear, and I do remember a story, oh god, a long time ago about almost the same thing as the crying boy, but it was the crying clown, and supposedly that picture was created because of like a circus fire, and apparently like the big top burned and some children got trapped underneath it, and the clowns were trying to extinguish the flames, and it was the day the clowns cried or something like that, I think is what it was called, or something to go along with that event or something. I can't remember, but I swear, and I want to say they were home interior. Because remember, we were talking about before that home interior was like really big in the 80s, and like those owl pictures we were talking about.
Yep.
Everybody had either the mother and baby owl, the crying kids, or the crying clown. I remember those in like every 80s house when I was a kid.
I remember my sister having the clown as a light switch in her bedroom.
Mm-hmm.
And the owls is so funny because my mom's mom, every room in her house had the owls, from the ceramic owls to the picture frames with owls to her kitchen clock was a big owl with the clock in its belly, and then two smaller owls on a branch.
Yep. They were all, I think they were a series, because the ceramics, the picture, and the clocks all looked exactly the same.
Yeah, and like I showed you that picture frame of me and my sister when we were little, and that was part of that owl collection. It didn't have the owls on it, but it was like a part of the
outer frame.
Yeah. So yeah, I definitely remember that kind of stuff. And I also kind of remember people having something similar to the Crying Boy painting in their homes. Now, of course, it's one of those things where it's a copy of the copy of the copy.
Right.
I'm sure if we looked it up on eBay, we could buy Crying Boy paintings that claim, they're brand new. These are prints from the famous Crying Boy series, and if you don't know anything about this supposed curse, you may be inviting this into your house.
Right.
Now, some believers say if you want to own the paintings, right? If you hang it next to an image of happy children, it counteracts the bad energy that's associated with the Crying Boy paintings.
It would be interesting to see what would happen, but not in my house. Not worth the risk.
No. Honestly, it wouldn't be, if I saw one of those in an antique store, I'd probably just walk the other way, because it's just not my style of, owls I would take.
Yeah.
You know, a crying boy or a crying clown wouldn't be
That's just
something I
weird.
would want hung in my house.
Well, I didn't. What was the appeal originally? Like, why would you want a picture of crying children in your home? That is, you know what I mean? Like, just
Well,
that alone is weird.
don't you remember like when your parents would say, "Do you, if you don't stop crying, I'll give you something to cry about"? And they just point at that painting and be like, "That was your brother.
Yeah, right.
Was your brother? You had another brother. He's gone now."
Well, it's like I said to you before. I remember that crying clown painting. My mom had it, and I remember we had these little ceramic or glass clown figures that again kind of went along because like you had the owls and the owl figures, and there was the clowns and the clown figures. And I don't know if she still had it when this happened, but her house was struck by lightning and burned down. So I mean, I don't know if the clowns and the crying babies have any kind of connection, but there you go. There you go. And I do want to point out that Rob Gaius, guy we knew from way back in school, one of the nicest guys I remember from school. He was always such a really cool guy. Says he was actually at Zach Baggins's museum in Las Vegas. He said it was nuts and had some strange reactions to the Dybbuk box. Really weird experience for me. I wish I would have known about that earlier, Rob. I would have had you on the show to talk about it. Maybe in another show we'll have Rob come on if he wants.
Yeah,
And talk about that kind of shit.
Yeah, it's actually seen the box.
Been there. Yeah. I mean, I'm not. Don't get me wrong. I enjoy Ghost Adventures. Well, I used to when they first came out. But I think Zach is kind of like what we said about Ed Warren. I think he's gotten to the point. I think originally he was truly into the whole paranormal, and I remember their first video. Remember when that board fell and the brick went, and they, dude, the terror in their voices when they were screaming, running out of that. I mean, you can't fake that. Like that was pure terror. But now, I think he's just a showman. I think it's, most of the stuff now I think is just for show.
Well, like I've always said, it's the weirdest, like 100% anything on TV has an element of, even reality TV is scripted in some way, shape, or form, and they enhance or overblow certain things. Like I told you, I watched the Poltergeist episode, got up midway through it and walked out of the room, walked outside. I got up and walked out on it at my own house. That's how much I didn't like it.
The Poltergeist episode of Ghost Adventures.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, I was going to check that out, but you're really not selling it.
It's not. It's one of those things where if you pay attention to what you're watching, like, they talk about the curse associated with the movie, which we've covered. I mean, it's not like, oh my god, you know, I can't believe you talked about that. No, we've done it. We've talked about the movie. We've talked about the curse. It's one of our previous episodes.
One of my favorite movies, too.
But, like, they sit there and they hype up all the deaths associated with the movie. Not happening at the movie. It's like, you know, the young girl's a tragedy. She died at a very young age. The older daughter in the movie was killed by her boyfriend, or ex-boyfriend at that point. Tragedy. But then they're like, and then in 2008, the guy who played so-and-so died from cancer.
Yeah.
Well, the guy was old when the movie came out. He's 30-some years past that movie.
Right.
And he died at, like, you know, 80-something of cancer. And then they went back at one point and they're saying, and he actually, like, the statement on the show was, well, we are not saying any of these deaths are directly related to the movie.
Mm-hmm.
But yet you've used them to hype up your episode this entire time. Like, the first 30 minutes of the episode, you've been hyping up these, you know, tragedies associated with the movie.
Right.
And then turn around and say, well, we're not saying that this has anything to do with this house or with any of the movie events or anything like that. We're just pointing out.
Right.
Well, you just sold it as a big deal, and then
you're going to downplay it.
A moment of like, oh, well, we got to retract this so nobody sues us. So let's make a statement where we're not saying this is it, but we're we've led you to believe the whole time that this is it.
Right. And then right at the last minute, you're gonna be like, but it's not true.
Yeah, well, it's like, how people clickbait,
Oh yeah.
their videos where they're out doing something and they see something and it turns out to be something that's normal, and then it's like, oh, well, what I saw in the end was something we see every day, But I'm going to clickbait your ass to make you watch it, and if you're dumb enough to sit here for an hour and not just put your finger on the slider and go through the parts you want to the part you want to see,
then you fell for it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
yeah, I don't know. Well, OS has a question. Do we believe in curses? To an extent, I would say yes. Depends on what it is and what the background story is on it. Like we talked about Egyptian artifacts being cursed and like the curse. Well, you actually explained it like the curses of the tomb. Like, is it a curse or is it the fact that a lot of those crypts or the sarcophaguses had those gases trapped in them, funguses and molds and all that kind of shit that and a lot of people did die after they were going in and out of those tombs and whatnot. But was it a curse or was it just a series of natural events that took place just because of the duration of time that had passed? You know what I mean? But still happened.
yeah, I would say I would believe more in cursed objects than actual just curses.
Like if somebody said they put a curse on you.
Yeah, I wouldn't necessarily believe in that because, like I said earlier, I think when you hear something like that, you start to develop irrational thought processes where you start just attributing your daily bad luck, like I got stuck behind a slow car on the way home tonight. The curse.
Right.
Now, do I feel that objects are that? I'm trying to think of how to word this right. Do I feel people have put curses on things and on people? Yes. Do I believe in the power of necessarily, somebody's grandma cursing somebody's, grandpa or, great uncle or whatever, and down generations this curse has continued? Not really, because I think you just start to attribute things. But I also then go back to John Bell and the Bell Witch. Again, I say I believe in cursed objects more so than curses, right? The curse was on the land. Not necessarily just on John Bell and the Bell family. It was on the land, and everything on the land, therefore, was taking part of the curse on too.
Right.
So, I would say, like, the old evil eye, I don't believe in necessarily, because all you got to do is this to ward it off. Which
has then been adopted to rock and roll, heavy metal.
Turkish wolf.
Yeah. The wolf.
Wasn't
WCW who did that? The wolf.
Yeah, it's called the Turkish wolf. They stole it from a Turkish custom of greeting. Yeah, but this, wards off the evil eye, became, Ronnie James Dio made it the sign of the devil.
Metal. Yeah. Devil horn
music. But even he said it comes from his grandma teaching him how to ward off the evil eye.
Yeah.
Because she, believed in that kind of stuff. And,
I have little tokens and charms that I carry.
I told you, I'm these people that share those stupid emails and share this picture and get, receive good luck tomorrow. And yes, you can tell me 1,000,000 times, oh, this has worked. And I could just
make manifestation.
And I can make fun of you for each and every one of them.
I would expect you not to.
Yeah, So I don't believe in curses necessarily. Do I believe in objects? Do I believe people put curses on stuff? Yes. Do I believe objects can be or seemingly take on a cursed effect? Yes, because I do know a certain person,
Mhm.
and I'm sorry, I'm adjusting to using the new camera, so I keep looking at where my old camera was. So if anybody's wondering why I constantly am going back and forth, it's not like a schizophrenic episode or anything. It's just I'm getting used to using the old camera, which is the new camera now. I know somebody who took something from a Mayan pyramid.
Oh God.
And they thought it was like, oh, you know, it's a stone from the pyramid. What's it gonna hurt? And they brought it home with them. And then they just noticed odd little occurrences.
Uh-huh.
Nothing major, nothing horrible. Nobody has died like directly related to this piece of stone or anything like that. But they've just had these weird little things happen over the years. And when they brought the fact up to me, they're like, don't you think this is weird? You know, this happened, that happened, this happens, that happens. And I'm like, yes, and do you know exactly why I think all these things have happened to you? And when they looked at me and said, no, why? I said, do you not remember taking stones from Mexico and bringing them into this home? And the person's like, do you really think that could be it? And I'm like, yeah, Mom, I do. Stop stealing antiquities from foreign countries.
Cat's out of the bag now.
Well, my mom probably doesn't listen, and if she does, she'll probably hide this. She'll probably come and hide the rock in my house.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, you know, and that's how she is.
That's what you need, right?
Well, it's like the picture that my sister and I constantly just keep getting.
What picture?
We found a picture in the old house, and it's a part of like a family portrait or a wedding photo, but it's just two people that are cut out of it. So it's only just this little piece of the original. But
Yeah.
it's a husband and wife, some kind of male-female partner.
Yeah.
And we found it in the old Minersville house. We have put it in the safe in the old Minersville house.
Mhm.
Locked the safe. Have moved boxes years later that have been sitting in rooms for years, like for many years, have moved the boxes and found this piece of the picture under the boxes.
Whoa.
We have no clue who these people are. We don't know if it was somebody that lived in the house at one point, if it was the original couple who built the house, where the photo, like I said, it is a cut of, like, somebody took a photo and just took these two people and cut them out of it.
From the Minersville house?
Yeah.
Oh God, that's probably what was plaguing us the whole time we lived there.
Yeah. So, like, we have taken that photo, we have taken it out, we have put it places, and it will turn up randomly. So finally, years ago, I took the photo. We were trading in one of our cars, my wife and I. So when we were trading in the car, I took the photo and put it in the seat. Like, reached up underneath it and slid it into the seat. Since then, I have not seen the photo.
I was gonna say, please tell me you have not found it.
No, but I mean, it took that to get rid of this photo, and this photo would just randomly be laying out, like, and we watched each other, like, going to the safe. It wasn't like one of us is really good at sleight of hand and pickpocketing and stuff like that. I mean, nobody in my family is really good at that stuff. But watched each other put it in there, have confirmed to the other one, yes, I can see it in there, closed the safe, locked it, took the keys to her house, hid the keys so the boys couldn't get it, like they might have messed with us and went over and grabbed it and run over through in our living room or something.
Yeah.
Like, it has turned up at our houses.
That's weird.
Yeah. So like years ago, I talked about it on the show before. I took it and
I don't remember this.
I think when we did something about the Miners' Little House, I talked about it.
I don't
I
remember half the stuff we talked about.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. Half the time we do episodes, and I'm like, yeah, I kind of remember talking about stuff. People ask me questions about it, like years later. They'll be like, hey, do you remember when you said this on this show? They just watched it. I'm like, dude, first of all, if I said it during the show, there's a 95% chance I don't remember it.
Yeah, no.
People will comment on videos and be like, well, what did you mean about this? And I'll be like, dude, I need a timestamp because I have no clue. That was 5 years ago.
Right.
On a show where we were talking about X, Y, and Z. It's like, you know, somebody one time with one of the Mokele and Membe. Look, I said it on the air.
Hey.
I couldn't say it. The one episode we do with it, I couldn't say the name for some reason, if you remember.
Yep.
And somebody like asked a question on Insta or on Facebook, YouTube, something. And they're like, "Well, what did you mean?" And I was like, "Give me a timestamp."
Yeah.
Because I have no clue what you're talking about. Like, and then they actually were like, "Oh, at this like 21:20, you said this," and I was like, "Oh, let me go back and listen." And then I had to go back and be like, let me go back 10 minutes before that and see what the context of the conversation was.
Right.
And then, like, 10 minutes after that, I was like, okay, what I think I meant 10 years ago was, you know. So, yeah, but that photo, like I said, I took it and actually, like, reached up inside the seat in between the cushion and the actual, like, cover of the seat, the cloth cover, and like slid it way up in there.
Dude, I would laugh if you end up getting a letter from a dealership or something like, oh, we thought you might want this back.
Yeah, no. I probably would. That would be one of those ones I'd be like, hey, Zach Bagan,
yeah, here, take it.
You got $25? Because I'll give you something that just keeps turning up randomly, and I have no clue why, and you could pretend it's haunted.
Right, for sure. All right, let's jump back to our last segment. See, now, did you hear that echo?
A little bit.
Yeah, I'm telling you, it literally, like, the whole show, not that I don't want to keep diverting and bringing this up, but the whole show, it you know, on TV when you hear, like, a herd of horses, like, running through the plains, that's what it sounds like in my headphones constantly. It's like a running horses, like, just like
you have tinnitus?
No,
you said your meters. Yeah, you said the meter was moving. Well, let's not complain too much because
I don't want to.
Management will yell at you.
Yeah. Okay, so we talked about cursed paintings. We talked about killer chests. The last one is a chair that kills you if you sit on it.
You're talking about the Belroy Chair of Death, right?
That is the one and only, my friend. And this bad boy is tucked away in the Belroy Mansion in good old Philadelphia, which, by the way, is considered one of the most haunted homes in America. Interestingly enough.
Yeah. Now, the chair in question is an antique from the 18th century made of dark, ornate wood and red velvet upholstery.
Mm-hmm.
It sits in a sunroom, just minding its own cursed business and waiting.
Yeah, but if you sit on it, legend says that's basically like your death sentence.
Yeah, at least 4 people are said to have died after sitting in this chair. Some of them suddenly, and then others within a short time afterwards, and all have died under mysterious circumstances.
Well, what puts a chill down my spine is people claim the chair is possessed by a malevolent spirit, a woman in blue, often seen floating near it right before somebody falls ill or dies.
Yeah, and she's been referred to as the Blue Lady, and some people think she's a former resident of the mansion. And others say she's something older and maybe even something slightly demonic.
Isn't it always demonic?
Well, it has to be a demon.
Right. It can't be nothing but. Well, and here's the weird part, right? The owners refused to remove the chair, right? Here we go. Just like all the others, they roped it off, and it's still sitting there, like it's daring someone to try it, to try and sit on it. And this one doesn't have a sign, "Do not touch," though.
Yeah. So there was one story that says a psychic visited the mansion and sat in the chair unknowingly
Oh God.
and felt immediate dread, like something was pulling down on her soul.
All right, nah. You couldn't pay me enough to sit on that thing.
And remember, this just isn't ghost stuff. People have actually died,
Right.
and whether it is a psychological, suggestion, some kind of environmental factor, or possibly a full-blown curse, something is up with that chair.
Well, the moral of the story, right? If a museum or a mansion has a roped-off piece of furniture, maybe, just maybe, don't test fate.
Yeah, you're the type that would sit on the floor to live longer. Me, I think I would just dive on the chair and bounce up and down on it to see what would happen.
You would.
Yeah.
All right, so we did do a lot of talking about what happens when people
Start getting
obtain.
real.
Right. Oh, real world. New Orleans. So we talked about what happens when people obtain haunted objects, but we didn't talk about how or why these objects become cursed, to begin with. So Chad, I would like if you would be so kind to let our listeners know how or why items end up cursed.
Sure. Well, it taps into something deep in human psychology, and like cultural storytelling.
Uh-huh.
So, some people believe it's like an emotional imprints or
Mhm.
like energetic residue.
Mm.
And that being said, many traditions and belief systems hold that these strong emotions, especially from pain, death, betrayal, or rage, can leave a mark on an object
Mhm.
physically.
Okay.
So this idea is sometimes called psychometry.
Psychometry?
Psychometry?
Something like that.
Yeah, whatever.
We're not good with words.
No. You don't listen to us. You do not listen to us for correct pronunciations.
Yeah. Don't follow us for grammar lessons.
Yeah, and that being said, and this theory is where an object actually remembers what happens around it.
Mm.
So,
Go ahead. Sorry. I'll ask you after this.
yeah, like an example would be like a dagger used in some great betrayal, like say the killing of Caesar,
Mm-hmm.
might be said to carry that emotional energy from that event.
Kind of like you're right, like almost like a residual haunting too.
Well, yeah, if you think about it, like the stone tape theory, like the actual stone is
Recording.
projecting.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's recorded, and then there's enough energy to project it into people seeing it.
Because like
So-
limestone was a big conductor of that, right? People say where houses that have that are built on a limestone foundation, and a lot of times have or claim to have paranormal hauntings.
Yeah, that's usually one of the things. Like they look at the type of stone used in the home, and even I think even to the point of some wood has been kind of tied, that they're seeing certain correlations with this type of stone, distance to running water, and the actual type of wood used in some of these homes.
So
has been
elemental
kind
properties have certain effects.
Yeah.
Interesting. Well, what's another thing that would cause an object to be cursed?
So something tied to tragedy or violence. If an
Makes
object
sense.
was involved in or present during a particularly tragic or violent moment,
Mhm.
people often assign it a curse in retrospect.
Okay.
So an example of that would be the Hope Diamond is said to bring misfortune to those who possess it, partially because many of its owners have died under strange or tragic circumstances. So there's not
Interesting.
necessarily somebody out there, put a curse on it or has stated there's a curse on it, but
It was
enough things
witness
are,
to, yeah.
enough things have happened around the possession of it to start to question, like, maybe there is something not right with it.
Right. What's another one?
So then you'd get into like a deliberate cursing of an object, right? Some objects are said to be cursed on purpose, infused with negative energy, rituals or spells by someone who wants revenge, protection, or chaos.
Mm-hmm.
So of course there your example would be a doll created as a vessel for spirits, or a protective charm that turned malicious if tampered with.
Okay.
So that would be your dolls created over the years for the purpose of housing a spirit.
Like a voodoo doll?
Yes, that would what you'd be looking at.
Okay.
More on the voodoo dolls. Then you get into like cultural myths, morality tales. So cursed objects often serve as a warning or a symbolic tool in a story that represent things like greed. The example of that would be like the cursed treasure.
Okay.
Hubris, the forbidden artifact. Violation of the sacred, disturbing a grave.
Okay.
And they become narrative tools that, touch the object and you suffer the consequence. So you
Makes
go
sense.
into this tomb, King Tut's tomb, and you shall die.
Right.
That's kind of, where you get into that kind of stuff. And that's more, the forbidden objects and, the treasures of the Sierra Madres and stuff like that, those type curses, or the Lost Dutchman mine.
Right. What's the last one there?
Oh, psychological projections. People tend to assign blame to objects when strange or bad things happen, especially if they cannot explain them. This is part of how superstition is formed. Ever since I brought this statue in my home, I've had bad luck. Boom, now it's a cursed statue.
Right. Well, it's very interesting. So now most of this seems to be more of an accidental cursing, right? But you did mention deliberate cursing. So what steps would one have to take in order to like deliberately curse an object? And like how would one infuse this curse in or spirit, right? Like the Dybbuk box, into this said object?
Well, I mean, obviously it would vary depending on your circumstances here, but there are some general steps that are based on various traditions over the years.
Okay.
So, like, the first one you'd be looking at is intent setting. The curse's power comes from the focused intent. People will often meditate or concentrate on the harm, the bad luck, or the energy that they want to attach to an object.
Kind of like a spell, like a binding spell. You put your intent into it, you know what I mean? And you project that.
Binding comes up a little bit later in this.
Oh, okay. All right.
But this is like the item, the power, the energy that you want to bind. This
like you
is
will
creating that piece of it.
Okay.
Then you would have to like select the object. And often it's something personal to the target or something symbolic, like a doll, a piece of jewelry, or a tool. Then you would get into like ritual tools, right? And this could involve candles, herbs like wormwood, rue, black salt, bone, or symbols, signals or runes, etc. Then the spoken word or incantation.
Yep.
a curse usually includes a spoken component, either a personalized curse or the traditional hex chants, right? Now comes the binding or enchantment, right?
Okay.
It's wrapping that object in thread, sealing it in a jar, burying it in a graveyard, etc. These are common methods of anchoring the curse.
Mm-hmm.
And then you would come into like the activation phase, and this could involve blood, moonlight, fire, or simply placing the item in the target's possession.
Interesting. So, Chad, after all of this, which haunted object would you never want in your house?
Oh, that would be pretty easy. I would say the crying boy paintings.
Mm.
And that's only because I live in a 100-year-old log cabin.
That's true. That's true.
So
You're in a
it's
tinderbox.
Yeah, it's one of those things. It's not as much of, oh, I'd be scared of it, or... No. I live in a log cabin. It's 800
Right.
years old. I would like to keep it standing for at least another 100 years.
I don't blame you. Well, for me, it's kind of two things. For me, the conjured chest, just because of the amount of casualties it actually had. And the other thing, like, you have a certain being whose last name is like a temperature that you just don't like, right? For me, I don't know what it is, but Robert the doll, that thing, I don't know, it just, it's the creepiest looking thing. It doesn't even look like a little kid doll. Like, it looks like a monkey or something. I don't know, that thing, it just, there's something about that doll, saying its name, seeing show, like, I don't know, there's something about that thing that just freaks me out. That, I would not want that. I wouldn't want the conjured chest. Neither of those two. Don't like them.
Yeah, the doll is kind of creepy. Like, it just has a weird look to it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I think it's one of those things where, again, that's kind of goes into that, like, pareidolia, where your brain, it doesn't look like like a human face, but your brain is trying to make it such.
Yep. It's almost, and again too, is like, are you subconsciously infusing or invoking life into this thing because it is so human like? Are you almost like subconsciously, like, as kids, you love that doll, you interact with it so frequently, and you form feelings for, I mean, I just think of like my kids and stuff like that they have, a certain stuffy or a doll or something that they've just loved. I mean, my oldest still has a favorite toy that she keeps, on her bed with her all the time, and my youngest has a little bunny that she carries around. So does that emotion and connection infuse something in there and give it some sort of life? I don't know. And maybe that's how it is for a lot of this stuff, is it has such a personal connection, or like you said, a tragic situation, that it just almost gets enveloped by the emotion of, or the tragedy, and it just keeps pumping that out and almost gives it its own personality or life, if you will.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's creepy.
I don't know. I'm not a big fan of dolls in general.
Right.
Like, I have no fear of dolls, but it's one of those things where, like, when my grandmother passed away, for some, I don't know what reason, she had those rabbit dolls.
Is it like the porcelain rabbit head with the? Yeah, those things are weird.
I don't remember my grandmother ever collecting these, but she had a decent sized collection. Don't ever remember seeing them in the house. Don't remember us ever buying her one, like, for a present for Christmas or birthday or anything.
Right.
Well, of course, for some crazy reason, She leaves them to my daughter.
No.
Yeah. So I'm like, first of all, I was living. My ex and I were divorced. I was living in the Minersville house.
Yeah.
So now I am inviting these like creepy enough to start with in the box items, dolls into a house that I already have had just terrible time with over the years.
Right.
So I'm like, yeah, I don't like these. I don't. If she wants them out, I will put them out. My daughter like took one look at them. She's like, oh, yeah, those are okay. And I'm like, they're yours. She's like, okay. She was little at the time. She's like, okay. I put them in the closet. Like,
they're still there, aren't they?
I think my sister got rid of them for me. Like, put them in the closet in my old bedroom in the front.
Yeah.
And like, put stuff in front of the door. And they were up on one of the wood shelves in that closet.
Yeah,
that's where they sat. I hope my sister got rid of them for me.
Oh God.
Because there was no one for those, and I'm like, why would she leave them to me, like to my daughter, like?
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I understand it's her great granddaughter, and it was like one of those, like, oh, my sister wasn't going to take them.
Yeah.
Because she hated them. And like, I know, like her other. I mean, my daughter was her only great granddaughter at that point, so I'm sure that's why she ended up getting them. But I was like, yeah, no, I don't want these things. So they went she didn't want them. I put them in the closet, and that's where they sat. And I'm really hoping my sister got rid of them, so I don't go in there one day and open that closet and they're all sitting there. Because they were nice. I guess they were expensive. I don't know. Yeah. I never looked them up. I wasn't like, ooh, let me get rid of these. They were my grandmother's, so I was kind of like, just kind of throw them in the closet. Maybe my daughter one day will be like, oh yeah, I really want those out, or I want to take them and get rid of them.
You should mail them to her. Hey, remember these?
Oh, no. Yeah.
I remember growing up, my sister, for whatever reason, she used to get, like, I don't know if it was my mom or my grandparents or what, but she used to get porcelain dolls all the time, like for her birthday or for special events and stuff.
Yeah.
And she had shelves in her room, and dude, there were tons of these porcelain dolls. And like just that soulless glass eyes that would stare blankly. And that was right around in the 80s when that movie Dolls came out. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh God, I remember when we were kids and stuff, going in her room and looking at that. I just kept expecting them to like jump off the shelves and come after me and stuff. Oh God, I hated them. And then she got a doll called Corky. I don't know if you remember Corky at all. Well, your sister was older, so she probably wouldn't have had that. But Corky was a little doll that you would put a tape in the back, kind of like Teddy Ruxpin, where you put the tape in the back and the mouth would move.
Yeah.
And this came out right when Chucky came out. And it was very, like, just the way the mouth moved, it just reminded me of Chucky. And I remember she loved that Corky doll because, of course, she never saw Chucky, but I saw Chucky when I was little. I remember every time, like, I would hide that thing. She's like, Mom, he hit Corky. Where's Corky? I'm like, oh, Corky. That thing ain't coming out. We ain't, oh, God, that thing terrified me. But, yeah, so dolls would be on my list of things that I don't like. Especially
I had the My Little Buddy, which is what Chucky.
Oh, yeah, My Buddy, yeah.
Yeah,
my sister had Kid's sister, too.
Yeah. But.
Yeah, My Buddy was kind of along the lines of Chucky, too.
Yeah, that I think was what Chucky was originally based on, was the My Little Buddy doll.
Yeah. I do want to say Cindy posted, she said she didn't get the notification that we went live. Now, Cindy, you're commenting through YouTube this time. Don't you normally comment through Facebook? You should have gotten the notification because it does go. Now we are in. I didn't mention this before because I'm trying not to go in too much of a tantrum about our technical issues. We are on a new provider, newer than the last one even, and so far we're really liking it. Minus the herd of animals running through my microphones or my headphones. It should have given you a notification. Maybe go out there again and hit notifications for our channel. Maybe it needs to refresh its new interface. And for some reason, even our old Be Live would start sending our show as an event in Facebook and not just a post. Most of the time, it's on YouTube. I don't know. I don't know. I'm very sorry, Cindy. You're gonna have to catch up with us in the first half or whatever you missed when we post the show back live again. Or you'll catch up later. You know,
Yeah.
I mean, I can't
Well,
talk.
also the nice thing about that, just to let everybody know, is if you've noticed the crawler on the top of the screen has been changing throughout the night and actually corresponding with the section of the show we're doing. So if you know you came in at the Anguish Man and the Crying Boy, before that was the Divot Box and I think the Conjured Chest.
Mm-hmm.
But those sections will actually are labeled as those. So if there's something in particular you heard you were interested in, and it was during the Conjured Chest section, you can just
Scroll back.
through until you see it go across the top. Then you know you're in that section.
Yeah, it's a new feature that we're trying to do to help people find almost like a time stamping, but a visual time stamp. So, all right, let's see. So, yeah, that's about it. That's about all we got for tonight. If you've ever experienced anything with a haunted item, we just ask that you get in touch with us, and we may feature your story in the future show. Or if any of you have any stories that you would like to come on the show and talk about with us live, DM us on either Facebook or YouTube. We'll be more than happy to get in contact with you and talk about your stories. I know OS we've talked about a lot of times getting on the show. And actually, I see Sean Forker, a good buddy of mine, has been commenting on the show tonight too. You don't like dolls either. I don't blame you, my friend. Forker, he and some other gentlemen have an awesome show, Sasquatch Experience. I've been on his show before, and those guys are great. They're live every Monday night at 9 o'clock. So go and check those guys out. Excuse me, but that's about all we have for our show. Any topics you guys want us to talk about for the next show, start sending in some ideas, and we'll get the show set up in advance. But yeah, that's about all we got for tonight. I want to thank everybody who listened for listening, and we should be live again in 2 weeks. Just please check on Facebook and YouTube. If your notifications don't work, just try activating them again. Hopefully, now that we're in a new interface, hopefully it'll start reminding you in the future. But that's about all I've got. What about you, buddy?
Yeah, that's all I got. And until next time, keep your antiques curse free.
Good advice. Sound advice. So, all right, ladies and gentlemen, we will see you guys next time. And until then, yeah, like Chad said, keep your antiques curse free. Talk to you guys later.
Bye.